April 8th, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would like to ask our AAA and our Excel winners to lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chair notes that all board members are present and Tommy is with us. So great, we have a full house. That's awesome. Consideration of agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda or any consent items anyone wants pulled? No changes? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Jesse, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Lauren. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Nobody submitted a form to present to the board. So next we have some very exciting awards to give. Our Jordan Pride Awards. So I'll turn it over to Joe.
All right, thanks for having me. I am very honored to present to you our AAA and XL award winners. We'll start with XL, which is Excellence in Community Education Leadership, presented by the Minnesota State High School League to two outstanding juniors. And representing Jordan, Caden Bruzek and Anna Stocker are here tonight. This is a pretty cool award. This isn't what they're doing on the court or in the auditorium. This is how they're giving back to our community. And they both applied and were slam dunks by our committee. That they were phenomenal candidates for this, and we're so proud to have them here and everything they do for us. And they're the type of kids that could be back here next year in Kat and Noah, who's at a baseball game, in their seats as AAA recipients, because they're those type of kids that are doing so much in athletics, fine arts, fantastic in the classroom. So they could be back here next year with that. But here today we're to present them with the XL Award, Caden Bruzek and Anna Stocker. If you guys want to come up, we'll do a little picture up here. Stand right up there in front of everybody. Let's go down the line and start with
Yep.
Sandy?
Belgerson.
No, go ahead, right there.
Okay.
One, two, three.
All right, over here. Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you guys.
And we're very proud of you.
Congratulations. Nice job.
Next, we are going to talk about our AAA winners. AAA, another State High School League award for seniors who excel in arts, athletics, and academics. You could argue these are your two most rounded student athletes, fine arts, academics in our building. And we had a great group of kids, and we do every year here at Jordan. We have a great group of AAA applicants. There can only be one winner for each gender, and Noah Schmidt and Kat Brown Erdahl are our recipients. They went on to compete at a section level and then on to state. Actually, sorry, none of our students made it on state. These, and Kat can probably attest to this because she was at the basketball game, and it was delayed because they represent, I forget who they represented, it was St. Peter, somebody. And just the accolades of these AAA kids are amazing, and it's so hard for our committee to read these applications and not awarded to everyone that's represented here at Jordan. But there can only be two winners, and Kat and Noah, who I said already is at a baseball game, couldn't be here. We're fantastic candidates and represent Jordan very well as our AAA candidates. So congratulations, and Kat's here, so we will present her with a pride ticket or certificate right now.
You know, it's a race then, who can tweet it out the fastest.
I won't.
Look at Dad. Look at Dad.
Get the most important guy out there.
Good job, Kat.
Congratulations to all of you. Just a minute before you leave. I just want to say a couple things. I had the honor of sitting on the Minnesota State High School League committee at the state level to help with the selection at the state level for the AAA awards, and then I was also able to attend the AAA awards banquet. And when we go through the applications, it is incredibly difficult. And when we see the kinds of things that you as students do, the first question is, when do they ever sleep? And the things you do academically, outside of the, in the community, outside of school, both on the field and in the arts, is absolutely amazing. And the example that you set for other students is beyond measure. So I can't thank you enough for all that you do and what you represent. You are great kids, and just wish you the best going forward. So, and I highly recommend that as juniors next year you apply. So, good. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Next, we have our consent agenda items. We have the minutes from March 13th, March 19th, both the special meeting and the workshop meeting, several finance reports, donations, policies. We have one policy. We have new hires. We have a long-term sub, Grace Mickelson, at a BA1. Elementary school psychologist at an MA40, step 15, Tracy Eddington. Cook hire, Andrew Brown at step 2, elementary school paraprofessional, ELS paraprofessional, Becky Christensen at a grade 5, step 9. ES special ed paraprofessional, Sunny Foe at grade 1, step 1. And a elementary school special ed paraprofessional, Kirsten Brown at grade 2, step 4. And then we had some reassignments, a couple teachers, Kelly Heyer and Brandon Arnold, who will be moving over to the middle school. And resignation of our high school sped teacher, Alyssa Goosey, and resignation of a cook's helper, Sandy Schmidt. So I'll entertain a motion to approve consent.
Motion to approve.
Lauren, is there a second?
Second.
Rob, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action items, review and act on a letter of formal application to the Wright County Conference. Mr. Perkle.
So my very first day that I was hired here back in August of 2017, Mr. Helgerson brought to my attention that we should explore conference affiliation.
Sure, blame it on me right away.
So for 57, 58 years, I think the only conference Jordan High School has ever competed in is the Minnesota River Conference. And it's made sense, and it's geographically has made sense, competitively has made sense for a long time until recently. And so in my first year, I needed to kind of get a grasp on things and evaluate it myself. We did not make any applications last year. We kind of just looked around, did the research, and competitively right now, we do not look like the rest of the Minnesota River Conference. We're a growing community. Our enrollment is going up. We are now double the size of many schools in that conference. The recent classifications from the high school league and our competitive section placements, we are going to be going against teams that do not look like the Minnesota River Conference. We'll be competing in the playoffs against, in the fine arts, we're moving up. We've got schools like Minnetonka, Shakopee, Prior Lake. In tennis, Eden Prairie, Chan, Chaska. Football, we've gone to 4A, although football's not a conference sport anymore. But all of our activities with the conference, with the section classifications have gone up, just about, except for volleyball, wrestling, basketball, and music. Otherwise, just about every one of our activities will be going up based on our enrollment. We went from an MSHSL number of 496 to 570. That's a huge jump in 1 year, or in 1 2-year rotation. So that being said, we will compete against those type of schools in the postseason. We need to probably compete with them in the regular season as well. So after looking at it last year and getting through most of this year, it made it pretty clear that we don't look like a River Conference school. We look more like the Wright County Conference. Geographically, it makes sense. There are two separate divisions in the Wright County Conference, and they actually act as two separate conferences. There's the West and the East. The West is all the way up to New London, Spicer, Litchfield, those type of schools. We would not play them at all. We would not, unless we wanted a non-conference game, those would not be the schools that we would be looking to get into a conference with. We would be looking at the East, which is geographically better, and enrollment, those are where all the big schools are. That's Waconia, New Prague, Orono, Delano,
Hutch Holy Family.
Hutch, Holy Family, and then Jordan would be
Mountain West Tonka.
and Mount West. Mount West Tonka currently is in the west. From what I'm hearing, they would be moving into the east along with Jordan, and then the plan would be to add Howard Lake, Waverly to the west to make 2 8 divisions. So that's a lot for some people to say, wow, Waconia and New Prague, they're twice our size. Why are we doing that? Well, unfortunately, with the classifications and the sections, those are the type of teams we're going to see in the playoffs. Those are the type of teams that we'll see at the speech meet. Those are the type of teams that we'll see at one-act play. Those are the teams we'll see after the student rotation. Our basketball team made the cut to stay in 2A by 2 schools. And most likely, the situation will be that in 2 years from now, we'll make that jump in basketball. Volleyball, there's talk of going to a 4-class system. Volleyball will probably move up to class 3A at that point. So the timing is right now. It's hard. This is a very difficult decision for me because we've been in this conference forever. I've been here less than 2 years, and now we're changing conferences, the new guys moving things around. I don't want that to be the perception. I want everyone to know that this is a joint decision. This was well thought out. This isn't just a reactionary decision based on where we're at with competition in the River Conference. This is going to be very difficult. We're going to go from a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big lake. We're going to have teams that have dominated their conference to being very average in their conference. That is going to bring our competitive level up. Winning is our goal, but it's not our purpose. So when we look at what we're doing in the regular season, yeah, we want to win every game. That's our goal, but that's not why we're playing those games. And the hope is by having better competition, we're more prepared as we go into those section and state play. So I've written a proposal. I believe it's attached. I don't have it right in front of me. It's kind of short and sweet. Hearing very positive things from the Wright County Conference. They will have an official vote. If we make our proposal official, they will have their vote on May 8th. Any questions?
This would take effect then in fall of 2020?
Yes, so all conference schedules are set in both Minnesota River and the Wright County for next year, so this would take place fall of 2020.
Okay, I'll open it up to discussion and questions.
Have you gotten feedback from our coaches?
Yeah. As far as concerns go, it's
No,
more,
just what their perception was.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
I would say most of the feedback I've gotten from the coaches is based on the section and the classifications more than the conference.
Okay.
With that being said, once they heard about the classifications, they see that it makes sense. QRF, if you're not familiar with the QRF, it's a crazy secret mathematical formula that determines basically a ranking in the state. They take how you compare to other teams and this and that. So when our baseball team moves up to 3A and we play Mayor Lutheran and we win, who's a Class A school, that actually hurts our QRF. Where if we play a Waconia and we lose, we would get more points than actually beating a single A school. That makes sense. So a lot of our coaches are already familiar with the QRF formula and are already seeing some struggles with it, with MRC. And some of the schools that we play we're not benefiting our seeding at the end of the year by beating those type of teams. One of the comments that came up, well, Belle Plain's our rival. We're not going to play Belle Plain in anything anymore. That's not necessarily true. We would love to play Belle Plain in every activity as a non-conference matchup. We play once a year and kind of determine who that true winner is that year in a one-game series. So we have, for the most part, as far as coaches go, very positive. Don't see it. The real struggle is the section piece and how we're going to go from competing in all these state tournaments the last couple of years to running up against a Minnetonka or a Eden Prairie in tennis in the second round, which is, it's intimidating, it's hard. How does a school with a class of 800 go up against a class of 140 in the same class? That doesn't make any sense. I totally get that and respect that. That's not really our call though. What is our choice is who we play in the regular season, and to better ourselves, we need to move into Wright County. And geographically speaking, it's when you add up all the miles of those 8 schools, or I guess the 7 other schools in the MRC and 7 other schools in the Wright County, it's not such a big difference. It really isn't. You know, we're going up to Mayor Lutheran, up to Norwood, out to Musur Henderson. Now our furthest trip, I think, would be Hutch, obviously, which we're playing a lot of non-conference matches with them in any way, and then Delano. So it's one trip a year to those schools. You know, I look at, well, we lose that rivalry with Belle Plaine, but maybe we pick that back up with New Craig, school geographically just as close as Belle Plaine. You know, again, twice our size. We go in as the little guy. We go in as the underdog. And we've kind of gone into the matchups the last couple of years as the team to beat, the team that has the target on our backs. And now we're going to kind of be flipping.
If I could make one comment, soccer finds a home this way. I think that's a significant advantage. And we've been playing a non-conference schedule.
Explain that.
Minnesota River Conference does not have soccer.
Yeah.
You have to have a minimum of 4, in the River Conference anyways, you have to have a minimum of 4 teams in that activity, and right now there's 3 schools. Last couple of years they've been trying to get a couple of schools rolling on it, have not had any progress with the numbers.
The other point that I would make is, you know, this is an informal poll, but I've talked with a number of parents throughout the winter since we started this discussion. Again, we had a focus group a couple of years back to discuss this, and then like Joe said, we dropped it for a year and then brought it back. We actually made an informal application to the right when Cullen Bond was our AD, and we were denied on that, so it never really got to the board level. So this signifies that at the AD level from the Wright County Conference, they've said, okay, yep, this makes sense. They're ready to take it forward to their board and superintendents, and I've gotten a positive affirmation from many of the superintendents that this time will be accepted. So just so you know, if you do choose to move forward with this, it is likely that we will be accepted. I would say it's, and parents that I've talked with throughout the winter are ready for it. So, the parents that I've spoken with.
And I don't know if this was how it was presented 3 years ago, but the understanding kind of with the Wright County ADs when I met with them was they thought Jordan would be more of a fit for the West at that time. As I said earlier, we went from 496 to 570 with our number. They look at us now as an East school, which geographically is where we want to be. Obviously, Watertown, Mayor, Dassel, Cokato, New London, Spicer, competitively would be an easier division to be in, but geographically, and you know what? I don't think we want to shy away from it. I don't think we're afraid to go to Laconia, and if we're not expected to win, let's go in there and give them a good game and every activity we have.
The fact of the matter is, we've gone to Laconia in both girls and boys basketball. I mean, wrestling. I think you need just 2 other things I want you to address. One is wrestling, and the second would be. I just lost it. Talk about wrestling first, and I'll think of it.
I'll start with, Lauren, you asked about the feedback on coaches. One of the things, I had a fall coaches meeting and asked about this in the fall. Yeah. One thing that the coaches really wanted was to see if we could grow the MRC.
Yes,
maybe
that's
have,
the other thing.
That was what I was
to have 2 separate divisions in the MRC, which would be ideal for us, Jordan, but not for everyone else. I brought it up at the MRC AD meeting this past winter, I can't remember which month. Talked about, can we expand? You know, we're always exploring conference affiliation. We would love to add, you know, St. Peter, New Ulm, Waseca, those type of schools, and have a big school, small school division, kind of like the Wright does. I had some off-the-record informal conversations with some ADs at those type of schools, and struck out. I mean, it wasn't even, well, let me talk, let me ask, and no, we're happy where we're at. We're not interested in the MRC, whatever that might be. Got some interest from some smaller schools. I know like a GFW, a JWP, that doesn't benefit us. That would be good for that smaller division if we were to expand and split it into 2. And in fact, the MRC ADs got their wheels turned a little bit last month when I said it's very likely that we could maybe be moving. And they are looking to add like a GFW or somebody else. They said Howard Lake Waverly, and I kind of had to bite my tongue knowing that they're probably going to the right, they're kind of a package deal. But they're now scrambling to replace us. And they had 7 schools for 5 years, and they can. That's not the worst thing in the world. It's nice to have even numbers, and that's I think why the Wright looks at this as a good fit for them. because now they can have 8 and 8. They don't have any buys. They have even teams, even matchups.
Yep.
So yeah, and then the wrestling piece, the one caveat on this whole thing is the Wright County will not accept Jordan if we bring Scott West wrestling. There is some bad blood. There are some things that outside of our Scott West community that people do not think very clearly on that program for various things, and things that I am hopefully going to be able to work on. But that was one deal, was your wrestling does not come with you at that stage. So wrestling will have 2 options. They will either stay in the Minnesota River Conference, with Belle Plaine being the host site. They will stay there. Or I have heard that possibly the Minnesota River Conference, with Jordan leaving, may say, you know what, we don't want them in there either. Which would make sense, because 2 biggest schools in the conference combined go to that conference meet and win by 1,000,000 points. It doesn't do us any good. It doesn't do them any good. So it may be that Scott West goes back to an independent schedule, which they've done before. And really, besides the conference meet, championship meet, they really run an independent schedule anyway.
Yeah.
We don't do any conference duels with any schools because it doesn't better our team, because we don't compete with those type of teams. So that is the one thing. Scott West would not be coming as part of this.
And honestly, it's really even out of our hands, because Belle Plaine holds the cooperative sponsorship.
Right.
So, you know, they're not looking to leave.
Yep. I do have one question, and
Sandy?
it's just, if you could just address, I think for speech it's different though, there's not an east and west, it's just a whole thing, do you know?
That I don't. Oh,
Okay.
for the right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's the whole thing.
I don't know. I don't know on speech.
Okay.
But that would make sense,
Okay.
because we get everyone together, and that would make sense. But when I asked, maybe they were just thinking athletics when I asked the executive secretary of the Wright County.
We were talking to somebody on Friday at sections, and so she was saying that they limit to 3 per category, which it's always been 4 for everywhere else, and so we were just like,
Yeah, I think they're kind
that's
of in
the
line
limit
with
is.
what AA speech, or at least the section we're going into for speech.
Yep.
I think it's 39 is the number, and we've always had 52, I think.
yes. Oh, the section is 39 too?
Section is 39 too, yep. That's our section that we're going into. Now, I can't speak for the
Ouch.
Wright County. I don't know what they do for speech, but I know that they're kind of in line with that.
Yeah, I think that's what,
Um,
yeah.
But it's that you could look at as it could be a beneficial thing for a smaller school, limiting the numbers. You know, if you got 1,000,000 kids, throw them all out there, you're bound to have a few more that are competitive. That way, if we can target with our 39, it could be a benefit to us.
What I think our speech program, correct me if I'm wrong, Sandy, but the numbers that we have, at least in the past, have rivaled some of these bigger schools.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
And again, going back to that conference speech meet, we go in there and we win
Oh,
by
yeah.
1,000,000 points.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
No, I completely agree with that, and given that we're moving up a section, that, I mean, you know, to AA, that it makes total sense to be more competitive. I don't know that it'll change a whole lot about where we go, because we already go to some big meets, but yeah, I was just surprised by that she was saying there's only 39. We're like, oh, because, you know, obviously you want to encourage people, you know, kids to go out, and you want them to be able to participate as much as possible. But when you get to conference and sections, then you may have to limit it more, so.
And we'll definitely be aware of that and want to provide those kids that aren't maybe in our top 39. We need them in our program.
Yeah.
So to provide them, whether it's a JV meet in Farmington or whatever it might be, to provide those opportunities for those kids, we're gonna find it. We're not gonna say, all right, we got our 39, we're done. That's not how we want to build that program. We still want those numbers to be huge.
Okay, other thoughts?
Does this also help open up opportunities for co-ops for other sports we don't have and activities? Hockey
Yes.
comes to mind, for example.
Yeah, it could. It definitely could, because now we're in a conference that has sports that we don't have. The hockeys, the skiing, the lacrosses. It definitely opens up those opportunities. And now we have a conference, and I'm going to be sitting at a table with ADs that maybe, you know, our lacrosse team could use a co-op.
Right.
So that definitely would open that door, yeah.
Other thoughts? Okay, this is an action item. So included in the agenda was the copy of the letter that Joe sent to the coaches, which did a really good job of explaining the whole process. So if there's no further questions or discussions, I will entertain a motion.
I'll motion to approve our application to the Wright County Conference.
Okay, Jesse, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Rob. Okay, further discussion?
Yes, I do.
Tom.
I just want, just to clarify to anyone listening, is that we did not have a choice in our classification through the Minnesota State
Right,
High School
right.
League. We did not choose which one where football goes, or basketball, or speech, or any of that stuff. That's all based on school. Our choice that we can make is trying to be more competitive during the season, and so really our choice is this change of conferences, not where we end up in the playoff mix.
Correct. And just as an FYI, that 570 that we went up to, that's the cutoff, the exact cutoff. So if we'd have had one more free and reduced person, we'd have been at 569, and we'd have stayed in the lower, but that's okay. That's okay.
Which, while we're on the record, I did appeal every activity that we had the ability to appeal. Everyone was denied. Unfortunately or fortunately, we've been very successful, so some of the things they look at are your free and reduced numbers, your projected enrollment, and your competitive over the last 5 years, record, regular season, postseason. Hard to
Did
go
us
in
no
and say
favor.
we want to appeal down when those teams were competing in state in the last couple of years.
And really look no further than our 7th grade class is 190 kids.
Exactly.
And I realize that, you know, some of our kindergarten classes have been smaller, but we're not going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, we're going to go up in enrollment.
And that was part of my pitch to the Wright County Conference. I said, Mr. Visner lives right here. He's seeing trucks go by every day building houses, and we're filling them as fast as we can build.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Woo-hoo. Big move. That was a big vote.
Good job, Joe.
Yeah. Good job.
Okay. Review and act on the 2019-20 activity fees.
Well, this kind of rolls off the previous action item. We looked at registration fees across all activities within the Minnesota River Conference and then in the Wright County Conference. We are one of the highest schools you can see there for general high school activity fees in the Minnesota River. We've matched up with Belle Plaine, Mayor Lutheran's higher, but everyone else is a little lower than us. So for in that conference, which we don't want to look like those schools. We are kind of in line. We are maybe on the higher side, you could say. Looking at the east end of the Wright County Conference, we are kind of on the lower end. I don't know how they can get away with that fee in Orono. Obviously, that's lake money out there.
Wow.
Looking at this, and I don't know when the last time we did raise activity fees. I know we did for $5 for middle school last year. But as far as the overall high school activity fee, I don't know how long it's been, $135.
We've raised it since I've been on the board.
It's 4 or 5 years, but yeah.
So, and you know, it's sad. One thing I will say, when we raise activity fees, we will never deny a student the chance to participate. Obviously, free and reduced lunch is 50% of the cost. If that's too much, we would never, ever shy away the kid from participating in activities. We'll find a way to make it work. If paying even half the fee is too much at one time, we'll do a payment plan. If that's too much, we'll find a way to make it work. We have opportunities to get people out there. We'll never turn away a student based on the activity fee being too high. So that being said, we would look to, my proposal, if you want to scroll back up there, is to raise the activity fee from $135 to $150 for high school activities. Football fee from $150 to $175. Our fine arts from $125 to $135 there, or competitive fine arts, I should say. Cheerleading an increase of $15, and with that we would bump the family maxes up a bit. We not at the same equivalent as we would raise these fees, because we want to promote multi-sport, multi-activity participants. So instead of raising the activity fee by a huge number, we're looking at I think $50 raise for all of those. So that would be covered if you participated in 2 seasons, not 3, by going that route.
And middle school would stay at $100, so that's not proposing to move that.
Yep, this would be just high school and fine arts. Now, speech acts as one program, 7 through 12. It's one of our only ones where a 7th grader is going to pay the same fee as a high schooler, because it is a 7-12 program.
Joe, just for kind of clarification for people that are listening, where do those dollars go? How are they used?
those go into the general, and those aren't activities, those go into the general.
Well, but then we build the activity budget based off of that.
Mhm.
So really, when you think about activities, you can't pay for activities with these fees.
No.
It's not possible. Busing alone.
That'll pay for the buses and maybe a couple of refs.
Yeah,
So-
like Schedule C, our coaches' stipends, would go towards that out of the general fund.
We did
indirectly.
in our last negotiations rounds, revamp Schedule C. So there is
Increase.
there's a different system, and we are pumping a few more dollars into that to be competitive. We have to stay competitive in order to continue to retain coaches and attract coaches. And like I said, it doesn't even cover just some of the essentials, but it helps to offset that cost.
Yes, yeah, and nobody coaches high school athletics or directs high school fine arts to get rich, but it helps. Right now, it's really struggling to find some volleyball applicants. Have had it posted, and not that a raise in Schedule C or fees affects that. I'm kind of going off topic here, but it's a frustration of mine and a stressor because we're coming up on things and we'd love to have some stronger applicants. And with that Schedule C piece, I think that it helps. A couple $100 more, that might sway somebody to apply.
Does this all, I mean, my question is this enough? Because if we're going to a tougher conference, do we need more coaching? Or do we need to evaluate even increasing it
Well,
more?
one thing, Jesse, one thing we're going to hopefully do, like especially our basketball program and maybe volleyball, would be to add another level, which would add another coach.
Okay.
Because those schools will have a varsity, and this will be, I just got my terminology down here, but now we'll have, instead of varsity B squad, C squad, or A, B, and C, we'll have varsity, JV, sophomore or B, and then ninth grade.
Okay.
And have 4 levels, and any activity we could have those in. And I know boys basketball is ready to go there tomorrow. I think girls basketball is close, and I think volleyball, we'd have to bring up some ninth graders, but volleyball would be close to having 4 levels as well.
Okay.
Which is more opportunities for kids. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the whole point, you know?
Yeah.
So the first action item, I was very hopeful. This one, I understand, we're not going to the Wright County next year. So understand that this would be nice to phase in now, but understand too that maybe some conversation needs to be had on it. This was just something in the last week or two that Matt and I were kind of pushing and getting ready for the action item today. But understand that, we will be in the Minnesota River Conference next year. So I think this would be a good thing for the district. Doesn't have to be right now, not necessarily. Should it be probably in the next 2 years? Absolutely.
Further discussion.
I feel real strongly that all kids get every opportunity, and I know for a fact that you can say that you offer everything and you give them scholarships and whatever. It takes a lot of pride for some families to ask. It's easy if you're free and reduced, I feel, because that's an open door. I know a lot of families that say you get to choose one thing. So I would like it to be more available, that people know that there's opportunities. I believe that we have success in our district because we have kids that perform academically and in the arts, and I know in my own family I had 2 people that did very well in school because they were in athletics, and you don't get to go unless you get the grades to get there. So I believe that in order for us to have well-rounded kids, we need to have this. I don't know dollars and cents. We obviously have to run in the black, and buses is expensive. So we want to have top quality coaches that have integrity, that are good leaders and good role models for our kids. And if raising the fees can happen and all kids can still participate in whatever they want and without big financial hardships to their families, I would support the increase.
I'm actually glad you said that, Connie, because I was going along those lines, but I was more looking along the lines of help me understand how it's communicated to those either free and reduced or those people that can't afford it, that there are options Because you're right, nobody wants to ask, so,
And that's a great point. We don't really publicize the fact that we would allow that scholarship opportunity or waive a fee based on financial hardships. And you're right, I'm sure we're missing out on some families that probably deserve it and need it. And I would hate if we're losing participants because of that. So part of this, if we are gonna raise those fees, would be, we probably need to publicize it better. We need to have that in my PAC meetings, parent athlete coach meetings, have that on our website. When you look at the fee structure underneath there with an asterisk or whatever, saying, you know, if there's a financial, whatever it might be, whatever that language might be, but to publicize that a little more. You'd hate to have people take advantage of you and do that, but I don't know a lot of people that are coming to you and saying that they don't have money when they really do. I hope that people that are better than that. But I think it would be the fact if we are going to make this, or even if we don't, just to publicize it a little more, to say that we do have that as a thing.
Joe, when did we raise these fees the last time?
Was it since you're
I
here?
think it was right around 4 years. It's been once since Matt's been here, because I was on the board then.
Wasn't
Was
it
it
just
once?
the middle school though? We did
we did
just
4 or
raise
5 years
something,
ago.
I thought,
But for
this
high
last
school.
year.
Last
I
year was a
think that
$5
was-
increase on middle
Middle
school.
school.
And
Oh, middle
cheer.
school only.
Yeah,
I think
it
it was
was
a
middle
couple years
school
ago.
last
Within the
year.
last 4, since I've been on the board, we've raised it once.
high school?
I think so.
I think so too.
I think so.
Like early on when we were
Yep,
first
right
on the
when
board.
we were first
I think, didn't it
elected.
go like from 125 to
I think so.
135?
I think you're right. I think you're
Okay.
right, Deb.
So
Yeah,
this is
minimum.
so this is a 4-year, so I mean, so
At
if you
least
just
4.
look, if you just look at inflation, I mean, this would be kind of in lockstep with that.
You talk about inflation, referee fees, they have a structure, it's usually a 1020, where they increase $1 one year, don't increase the next year, increase $2, don't increase the next year. So, and you add that up times 20
I think
games,
so.
that's
About that, I
a
think.
big number. And so, those numbers are going up.
Right. Yeah,
And so, to
we
be
did.
competitive, that inflation piece is kind of something that we're getting hit with.
Yeah.
And
We'll do a cleanup, yeah.
Have you thought of putting together a schedule on a go forward, since we're kind of here saying, trying to figure out when the last time was that we raised fees? So like maybe every 4 years you relook at it or revisit it, and so you like know, okay, we raised them 4 years ago, this is why we're looking at it now.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and find somebody who would have that information. You know, we went from paper
Board book.
copies to
Board
Affinity, which is now an online
Yeah, board
registration software.
Board book would have it.
Which was 2 or 3 years ago, but I know we could go back into our, because you have to keep registration for X amount of years. I know we've got them up in the upstairs of the high school somewhere. We could look back at those registration forms and
Right.
I'm sure we could.
And I think, I guess where I'm coming from, and I think it's kind of this general theme of what we've been trying to do from a board and administration perspective, but just that transparency, that fairness, that rationale for if we're gonna make a decision, what's kind of the basis? Well, I mean, this one is, if we move forward with this, it's, the basis is preparing for the new conference, understanding kind of where we are and in terms of kind of inflation, how these dollars help offset some of the larger, kind of expenditures that we have, and making sure that, we have good benchmarking in place, that we're kind of where we need to be relative to some of the other districts. I think that being able to explain that effectively is to what Connie and what others have said, Lauren, that's appropriate.
Connie?
Um,
Then Tom.
Maybe I know this, but I don't know this right now. Is there a fee for us to belong to each of the is there a different amount of a fee to a conference? So will we have an increase by choosing to move to this conference?
There are annual dues for going, whatever conference you're in. Each conference has an executive secretary that handles scheduling and running the AD meetings, all those other things, financials. So there are conference dues that we are currently paying for the Minnesota River Conference. I don't know what those are for the Wright County. I do know that when Southwest Christian joined the Minnesota River last year, they had to pay a one-time double dues fee, basically. I have not heard any of the financials because we haven't been voted in yet, but eventually we'd settle in and we would just, whatever those conference dues are, would be the same for every school in the conference.
Well, and then we also pay per activity to the Minnesota State High School League, and I'm quite confident that the fees might be raising. I'll leave it at that. Tom?
I would like to see two things. One, that would be a budget of what we're currently charging for the fees, and then in the number of kids that are participating, the number of ones that are getting the family max, so they're actually getting the discount when they, because like my kids do, quite frankly, when they're playing, when you got 2 kids playing 3 seasons, basically their spring sports free. So I'd like to look at some of that stuff so we can really compare what that is, because do we look at something where maybe you're not raising the fees, but you're doing something with that third one and that can make up that difference, would be my first question. My second question, right off of what Connie, you guys were talking about with the kids and getting the scholarship type thing, is do we look at a system where they can actually earn money towards their activity fees, and it's just public and it's broadcasted out to whoever, so maybe it's cleaning the football stadium up after a football game and they get $20 credit per night that they do that. I mean, somebody's already we're already paying these fees out, so what if we just recoup them back into the activities budget instead of it being something where they have to find a scholarship, like the 5th and 6th grade sells their candy bars, it's something that they know that's out there. So a kid wants to work the concession stand at a basketball game and they get $20 every time they do it towards their activity fees, and we work it that way. So it's not,
That's actually a really good idea.
it's not something that would be perceived as embarrassing, but it would be something that's like, hey man, my parents, like Connie said, my parents are willing to pay half of it. I got to come up with the other half. Here's how I come up with the other half.
That's a really good
You know,
idea.
so something like that. But I'd like to see the budget too, because we're talking about increasing, but what does that look like in the budget? You know, are we talking about all this stuff I know it's more than this, but is it $1,500? And we're going, why are we discussing this? Why are we putting that tax on the families?
Or is it that it's, guys, in the grand scheme of things, this is just cost of doing business. It doesn't really matter. So if there's going to be significant pushback in the community, hey, sorry, your gas is increasing.
Yeah.
Other things are increasing. This is just how it is.
Yeah.
Because I do understand and I appreciate the sensitivity of some of these fees. But I think that if we are to kind of create a little bit more of that education and that we're creative in terms of trying to find some of those alternatives for kids that just don't have kind of that opportunity, but we're creative in helping them achieve that objective, then that can be the kind of the win-win that we're looking for.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So what I'm hearing are several pieces. One, that we'd like to see some information about conference dues. We'd like to see the historical activity fees, at least to a certain point. Maybe it's the last 10 years or something like that, 15 years. And then I also would like to make a point, and we can look a little bit historically at this as well, but I know the last time we negotiated the teacher contract, which is how we pay our coaches on Schedule C, the school district, one of our agenda items, so one of the things that we brought to the table was putting $25,000 onto Schedule C.
It was 25, right?
That wasn't on that one.
It was
Somewhere around
25,000.
there. Yeah.
And I would assume that the next time, don't quote me on this, but the next time we negotiate, which will be starting this summer, we will ask, well, it'll be one of our items again, to put more money on Schedule C. Because we'll take a look, let's just assume we get into the right county. We'll take a look at what their coaching and advisor salary pieces are, and we'll have to stay competitive with that particular group.
And we may have to add another level.
Yep.
Since they've got.
So what I'm suggesting, and then hearing what Tom provided for input, a spreadsheet with participation numbers, fees generated. I think our software program can help us with a lot of that.
How many hit free? I'd be interested in how many hit, like my kids do their third season's free type thing too.
So what I would suggest is we have a work session on the 22nd that we're able to bring back some of that information, and then you take action, because it's an action item, to postpone this decision until our May 11th board meeting? 13th, 11th, something like that?
I think you're looking at 13, right? May 6th.
Is it the 13th,
Yes.
seriously?
May
Or
13th.
May 13th.
Great.
And what's significant about that is May 11th is when we'll know?
May 8th.
May 8th is when we'll know the decision on the Wright County.
Okay.
So I think definitely pushing it back a month makes sense, because we have finalization on what conference we're going in.
Great.
forward.
Lauren?
Can you include an outline of your communication strategy on how you plan to communicate to those families or students Tom's great idea on how you can work off your payment and how it's gonna get communicated? Because I think you said the timing, I was thinking of the timing, because if you do it at the PAC meeting, if those kids don't know about it, they aren't gonna go to the PAC meeting. You know what I mean?
And
So I'm just thinking from a timing
That
perspective.
might be a completely separate action item, I think, because we need to define what ways you can work that off, if any at all. And right now, that would be a direct competition with our booster club, because those field cleanup days are given to teams to earn money for their booster account.
Okay.
So we would then be severing ties with putting money into our booster account to accommodate these kids. I'm not against it, but it's something that would require
Well,
action.
and also keep in mind that it would require manpower administratively. Who's going to monitor and take
Because
care of
when
that,
the
so.
booster club does those events, the coach is there watching the kids clean up. Who's gonna be there till the lights turn off, watching the kids clean up?
Yeah.
Who knows if they're gonna do a good job? You know, there's some different factors in there that I'm open to the idea of finding a way to maybe earn some of that back, but we probably need to define what that is before we were to implement something like that.
Are there scholarships through the Booster Club?
Not for
Don't do it
Jess,
right now.
Jesse, your booster club.
I don't think so, not that I.
They're not.
No.
Okay.
There are some groups within the booster club that donate dollars for scholars, but there's not a direct.
Okay.
In fact, they can't, like, the football team can't just say, we're gonna have the Hubman scholarship for so-and-so. And then they can't legally do that with state high school.
Does it also make sense to evaluate, do you just want to build it into a schedule, like every other year we raise it by 2%, 3%, and just have it as a policy?
We talked about that a little bit. Do we maybe raise it X amount of dollars this year and then
Right.
a little more when if and when we go into the right? And my suggestion was, now you're dinging them 2 years in a row. Instead of just hitting them one time and saying, here's what it is, everyone's upset for 1 year, and then it's just kind of the norm going forward. You do that 2 years in a row, well, fees are going up, fees are going up. I think it would just be, if these are the right numbers that you guys want to act upon, then I think just a one-time shot.
So then we also want to see approximately a ballpark on what that change would generate in funds based on this year's numbers.
Current numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, yep, and I'll put that together.
Sure.
I haven't been taking notes, hopefully you have something for me. I will
Got it.
go ahead and work on that for your, April 22nd?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there?
2 weeks from tonight.
Beautiful.
Does that give you enough time?
Guess all day Thursday after we cancel everything?
Yeah.
Last
Okay.
snow day.
Other thoughts? Otherwise, we need to make a motion on this. Any other questions for Joe or any other thoughts?
Do you
Tom.
want do you want action to move it, or do you want to just?
No, my recommendation would be to postpone definitely to the May 13th meeting. With
And
the
we'll put it on
understanding
the
that on
workshop
April
schedule.
22nd will be workshop
Okay.
discussion.
I will make that motion
Okay.
to postpone
Did you
definitely.
get that, Hope? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Rob. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time and
Yeah.
efforts.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe.
Okay. Review and act on the audit engagement letter for audit years FY 2019. Amy?
So I received our audit engagement letter from Bailey, they're our current auditor. And this is a 3-year proposal, so they'll audit us for fiscal year ending 2019, 20, and 21. And I'm recommending that we stay with them. Even though I've only been with them for 2 years, I've had good experiences. They're very knowledgeable, and there's a lot of changes coming up, accounting-wise and other things, and they stay on top of things, so I think we should stay with them.
What was our 2018 fee?
I want to say it was around between 23 and 24,000.
So it's-
It didn't go up a lot.
So they're just doing a standard inflation increase as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah, got it.
Yes.
I guess the one discussion point that I had was on the presentation fees. Would they still present to the executive committee, to you? They still would present the results of the audit to
Yes.
you and Matt, and it would be Connie as the treasurer and
Yes,
probably
and
myself.
And they would come here, it's just an additional
Okay, and that's a decision we could make
Yeah.
whenever?
Yeah, we don't
Okay,
have to make that.
okay. Okay. Questions? Sandy?
I guess the last time that we did this, I mean, we had a different auditor for a couple of years ago, correct? I can't remember the name of who it was, but.
Clifton Larson.
Clifton Allen Larson.
Okay, thank you. I feel like we went out for bids on that?
We did.
Is that correct? We did?
Mhm.
So I guess, are we planning on doing that, or are we just gonna not, or just gonna stick with them? Is it not
Typically-
viable to, or not reasonable to do that? or-
Typically, most of the boards that I'm on, they stay with the same auditing firm for 2 or 3 or 4 cycles.
Yeah, and
and
I
they-
get the
they-
advantage of doing that.
Yeah.
I definitely do.
Because I think from my point of view, it takes a while for the
Mhm.
auditors.
Yep,
to
I
do
totally
what
get
you
that.
in your office.
Yep.
And I've had Clifton Larson Allen too, and they were good too. But auditors are kind of few and far between, and
Yeah.
then they switch and
Mhm.
bring new people into your office, and sometimes it seems like you're almost auditing for them. And where I Bailey, we have had the same 3 auditors for the last 2 years now.
Mhm.
Okay, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Further questions? Okay, a motion?
Motion to approve?
Jesse?
Second.
Connie? Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Review and act on the district identity toolkit and trademark and logo authorization request form.
I'll take that. Kat wasn't unable to be with us tonight. But she and I have worked on this. As you know, I think we spent the last 2 or 3 board meetings having discussions about
Thanks, you guys.
branding and our identity toolkit. And I believe this reflects our previous discussions about how we want to move forward. I'll entertain questions that you might have. And really the link is, that's your snapshot, and what we did is, if you click on marks and logos, for example. Oops, I'm sorry.
Just as a refresher, correct me if I'm wrong, for those of you, at the last meeting, we had a very lengthy discussion about this, and didn't we decide, we held off on this decision because we wanted, Tom and Rob weren't here, and we wanted them to be, and I don't think Jesse, was Jesse here? Were you here?
I was here for both
Yeah.
of them.
Did I imagine that, or did that really?
We had 2 discussions on this.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, the first one, and then we wanted Tom and Rob. and we
Right.
had another conversation.
okay,
We approved it, I believe, all right, yeah.
okay.
But we wanted, I think the discussion point was, you wanted to see the formal process in which an outside group
Right.
would
Right.
request use of our logos. So if I go back to this particular page, what we did is, just for ease of use, is we created, these are all our approved logos within our identity toolkit. So an outside business might say, hey, I want to use, I really like the academic seal, crest, so I want to use F. So then they'd go to this form and they'd request F, fill out the different pieces. Obviously, that's fairly self-explanatory, but they would have to agree to the conditions for permission of use in order for us to sign off on it.
And we are not charging, correct?
It'd be a 5% royalty fee, is believe what
If
we
they're
put.
using something that's, yeah. okay.
That they
If-
sell.
Yes,
Ours are trademarked, right?
yes. I mean, what that means really is, it's just really hard to, unless you have an army of people to manage it, it's just really hard to manage, because once an image goes out on the web, people will duplicate it.
What's the royalty fee for? Sorry, I missed.
5%, if, for example, Rademacher's, we've
Yeah.
had some conversations, well, I haven't, but Kat has had some conversations with their, the person who manages their clothing.
Yep.
And they're really excited to be able to work with us, actually. We would then propose to them that if they were to, whatever they sell, that 5% of their proceeds, their revenue, would come back to the district.
But like booster clubs and associations would not be charged the 5%? though?
No.
Right, okay, I remember that now.
It's just for for-profit organizations.
Got it. Yeah, looks good. It's well laid out.
Everybody? Anybody?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Have a motion?
Second.
Second, Connie. Discussion?
I would just add that we didn't do this like in a vacuum. We did look at other organizations, other school districts that had created similar permission forms. So it's you know, it's not, I can't say, well, it's exactly the same as so-and-so. It is, have some unique characteristics, but we, like we do with a lot of things, we looked at others, for example.
And since it's trademarked, I mean, we can have some teeth. If somebody misuses it, you can kind of send a pretty stern letter saying you're infringing on our logo. I'll be contacting our attorney. Serious.
If somebody does misuse it, we put in a penalty. You know, it's a 2-year penalty that they would not be able to use any. Yeah. So like an association, like let's just use JBA. JBA could say, you know what, we want our kids to have the Jaguar and the Hubman. Okay, fine. So they request permission. Their association is still going to be unique to them. You know what I mean? This is just for the kid portion of it as it relates to the association. We'll let them use it as long as they adhere to our guidelines and don't modify it in any way, shape, or form.
And then what happens again if it is modified? Or
It's a 2-year penalty, but you know, their uniforms would be already created, so we'd have to decide whether or not we'd want to go after them and just say you're not able to use our logos anymore. It's just, how do you you'd hope that you'd get cooperation. That's really the ultimate.
I think that's the goal. Absolutely.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Superintendent's Report.
So our April enrollment is not significantly different than our March enrollment. Our K-4 population rose a little bit while our middle school and high school declined a little bit. It's just that, you know, almost end of the year jockeying, and we see it annually, so I don't think there's anything significant of concern there. We're still tracking at about $250,000 in additional revenue compared to what we originally predicted. It is that time of the year where we start to think about my evaluation. So,
And on that note, within the next couple of weeks, I'll be sending out, those of you, I don't think Jesse and Rob did it last year.
We did.
You did, you did, okay. Are you all okay with using the same format, or do you want me to look at something different?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think it's fair to keep the same.
Yeah, the criteria are based off of our strategic
Yep.
plan, so,
That's-
okay. Sorry.
no, that's fine. So I will provide sort of a goal update to Deb, and then she'll provide that to you so you can complete that process. The snow day relief bill, and you know what? I just jinxed us by putting this on. So kicking myself. But Governor Walz did sign the bill. It's a 1-year, it was introduced by Senator Carla Nelson, I believe.
I don't know if it was Carla's.
I think so. Anyway,
I think
doesn't
so,
matter.
too. She's from Rochester.
It is a 1-year bill, so it's only effective for the 2018-2019 school year. At this point, we don't need to access it. If we were to have multiple snow days or multiple weather closures from now until the end of the year, then we may have to access it. One more, if Thursday is really going to be snowmageddon, as what's being predicted, and we have to close, we still would be in a position where we would be fine for the number of hours.
Would we be okay if we have to dismiss early on Wednesday?
Yeah.
It's
that
sounding like it's not supposed to start till like 5:30ish.
Okay.
I
That
think
was the
Wednesday
latest
will
I
be
heard.
fine.
but-
I have heard so many different
I
things,
know,
it's just
I
hard
know.
to keep track. But
And it'll probably be 2 drops of rain.
Yeah,
you know.
Friday morning,
Sweet.
you know, there's probably a little bit more concern Friday morning than there is
Oh, God.
Wednesday afternoon.
That's really bad.
So we'll see how that happens. And really, the reason why I put this memo out to our staff, because we were getting a number of people that were bringing the newspaper article in saying, look, we get paid now, you know, some of our hourly employees, which all of our contracts that have hourly employees built into it have an opportunity to make up
Yeah.
time. But the legislation, if you take advantage of it, you have to do everything in the bill, which means we would pay employees essentially for not working. I mean, I'll just be blunt.
Yeah, so basically the paras and the cooks, the custodians, if they didn't make up the time, we would have to pay them, but, so why would, either way, we'd have to pay them, so why would you make up the time? The way the bill is written.
Regardless,
But
even
no.
even if we needed to access the bill, I don't know that I would come to you and say, hey, we want to access this bill,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you know, we have something built into our teacher contract where the first day is a free, actually, you know, paraprofessionals as well.
Right.
And then both the paraprofessionals and teachers have X number of days. Paras have fewer, but teachers have then 5 online learning days. Elementary, they have online professional development. And then after the 6th day, you know, we would make them up, essentially. You could choose not to, and you could choose to access this bill, and they'd forgive time, but I don't know why we would do that.
We're close on the elementary hours,
We are
but we're
close.
okay yet?
We're okay.
So, okay.
Yep. Close.
It's really more the days than the hours.
So the letter, and then I attached the link to the bill if you want to look closer at that. The Director of Teaching and Learning hiring process, the first step of that process will be completed at business day end tomorrow. And we'll have narrowed those candidates down in that first round of screening. My screeners right now, including myself, are narrowing that. I think we ended up with 31 submitted applications, which I thought was a pretty good pool number for that position. We'll narrow that candidate pool down. Then we will give them an electronic interview process for the remainder of the week. And then on Sunday next week, my screeners are meeting again. We'll narrow that group down to the ones that we'll bring in for an interview. So the goal would be, by the next time we meet, we'll have a special meeting, and hopefully we'll have a contract ready to, or we'll be offering a contract to a candidate. The hiring process is attached to the agenda for anybody that's interested out in the public. I think it's a fairly extensive process. Yesterday, we talked about that, and I'll address that here in a second with our symposium. Teacher changes. I know that in the past, that's been something that a number of you as board members really like to see, sort of that running tally. So you can click on this link at any time. It's a Google document, so it will update as we hire. And I'll try to remember to put this out there multiple times, but you can see internals and externals and the positions that are open and how we're filling those, sort of running tally. Let's see. Shouldn't have done that. Yep, okay. Symposium. Deb was there for a while. Connie stayed for the entire symposium. It was fantastic, I think. I really enjoyed it, just from my seat. That 24 grew to 29, and then we had one person that couldn't make it at the last second, but we had 28 teacher candidates, and half of them had positions in the past, but were looking for jobs, and then the other half were fresh out of school. So it was really a fun room to be a part of. You should have seen, it was like a room full of reporters. They had their notepad out, just writing notes like crazy. But a few thank yous first to my team for putting together the idea. I don't know of too many districts. I actually shared this with some of my colleagues. They're like, really? That's really a neat idea. So I'd like to thank them for coming up with such an innovative idea. And then I'd like to thank food service. They did a mesquite chicken dinner that had a nice green salad. They had mixed vegetables. They had mashed potatoes. They had biscuits, gravy. We had mesquite chicken drummies, and they catered it for us. I thought that was a really nice highlight. So any groups out in the community that are looking for a place to host an event, why not here, and why not cater with our food service? I think that's just a really cool idea. And just again, thanks to the team that were involved in putting it together. What we did is essentially we had just the application tips, what we look for in that initial screening process. And then we did on the interview day what we look for, and what you find out is even amongst us as panel members, we look for different things. So I think the message is be you, and if you're a fit, great. So we, they were very appreciative. Then we did pictures. We did a swag bag, which I thought was cool. So every symposium attendee got our mascot logo t-shirt. They got a Jordan water bottle. They got a pencil. They got a new teacher survival kit that we put together. It was just a real fun thing. So we're going to expand on it. We got some ideas. One thing that one of the college students said was, I'd like to break down in smaller groups so I could spend more time with the adults. I was like, holy cow, I'm getting old. So they're viewing us as the adults in the room. They're like, I still think of myself as a kid. We got to remember, they're like 22 years old. Don't laugh, Tommy.
You did a tour, too. They were impressed.
We did.
We did the tour. They were really impressed with that.
How many open roles did we have at the time of the symposium?
What's that?
How many open roles did we have at the time? It's not
I
that
know
many.
several of them interviewed today.
Did they?
Yeah, and we actually offered the position to one of the candidates on there, one of the positions, I know for sure.
Good.
Because I was involved in kind of making that offer, but they're a rock star, so they have another offer on the table, so tonight they have to make a decision. So, and the second candidate was actually a symposium attendee as well, so.
Good.
It was really fun. It was very different from bringing a candidate in for a one-on-one interview. To see them basically kind of with this big group, they had to kind of like make themselves stand out, kind of like Bachelor. So it was really fun seeing the dynamics and seeing the behavior of some of them. So yeah, it was.
Well, in the questions, like one of the questions was, well, why don't you have robotics in middle school? And Matt just said, because we don't have a teacher that can do it. Well, we have robotics we introduced it in 5th grade at our school, so it's like, well, why not apply here? And then we'll have middle school robotics. They had really good questions,
So it was good both ways.
Yeah.
Good for them to be able to observe us and vice versa. So.
Yeah, I
It was great.
I loved it. I had so much fun. So next year we'll expand on that idea, and certainly you're all welcome to come. Legislative update, I'm not going to talk a lot about that. You see kind of what's going on there. We actually had a discussion today at our Scott Family Net meeting with superintendents from Scott County, and the consensus was it's going to be some form of 2 and 2 is the guess, whether it's 1.5, 2.5, or 1 and 3, or some sort of, they might backload it rather than front load it, but the guess is we'd end up at 2 and 2. I kind of shared this, and maybe I just need to call our legislators that are influential on the Education Finance Committee, and just say, give us 2 and 2 or 3 and 3, and give us a directive to revamp how we do secondary ed, and say, local control, you guys figure it out. Build a more economical model that you know, meets the demands of the 21st century. Because I shared with my colleagues today around the table, I said, why don't we do like the CAPS, which we are a member of MinCAPS, or the CAPS model, the Center for Applied Professional Studies, which Tommy is in our health careers, which you must have a great tour today of St. Francis, right?
We saw babies.
Oh. Were they playing the nursery? Were any babies born while you're there? When a baby is born through the whole hospital, they play a...
like the little lullabies.
Yeah.
It's so cute. Oh my gosh. That was the best part of the whole day. These babies just coming in really.
Well, one of the things I said is, and it goes back to what Connie just said, like nobody can find industrial technology teachers. So if we could create a module and do more of us, find some storefront and lease levy for it, all of us as Scott County Schools, lease levy for that, stock that thing with, you know, I'm guessing that businesses from around Scott County would just love that idea. Stock it full of the best technology you can find, put a rock star teacher there, and build upon that program. I mean, that would be such an innovative way, and talk about a more efficient way to do business. So going back to the whole legislation, when I go up there for the day at the Capitol, I'm going to say, look, we get that we constantly ask for money in K-12. Tell us that we have to revamp, but tell us we have to do it so we get permission to do it. Because I think a lot of schools are reluctant to innovate because they're afraid to change the model. So there's my soapbox for tonight.
As long as you were on that before you move on.
Yeah.
I noticed in Amy's report that our, budget-wise, our Southwest Metro CTE numbers are way up.
Yep.
Do we have a handle on why that is, and is that something that we can provide here to keep the kids here like we're doing with medical careers and
yeah, we're gonna,
the other summit programs?
You know,
that
I don't know what registration numbers ended up, but one of the things, for example, would be that building that house.
construction
on-site,
trades,
construction
yeah, I figured
trades.
that was...
So the more of the things like, you just have to be careful because you have to have that, you have to weigh the cost of a teacher versus the cost of a bus, sending those kids and the loss of the tuition. So it's just that balance. Plus our senior class is higher than it has been, you know, for a number of years.
Well, I'm just thinking, you know, that the push nationally and statewide has been towards career tech.
Yep.
And there's been a big movement in legislation to promote that. And so I'm thinking, are we going to be seeing more kids going that route?
Well, quite honestly, I might just drive to UW Stout and just walk around until I can find somebody graduating with an industrial technology teaching degree and offer them a job.
I'm serious.
I mean,
yeah.
And what's baffling to me, and this, they're not the only ones, but we reached out to them. They're not helpful.
How many do they graduate a year in that program?
I don't know the total number. I mean, but they're one of the only schools that has it.
So is it because the people then can get a job in trades and get paid lots more than?
Yep.
So it has to be a passionate teacher.
I do know that, you know, we have it posted, and we're interviewing a person, I think it's next week, that is licensed, and, you know, but there's just like 3 applications, and it's been posted for a month. So we'll see. Teachers on call, March report, that's attached as well. It just, to me, it's just a number. Maybe it's just because we're tracking it for the first time really ever, but it just seems really high. 227 total sub-requests in March, and that's with the spring break. And we had an overall 78% fill rate.
And so, it was a very low flu year.
So again, you know, going back to our negotiation session, that's something we're going to look at too, is some sort of, can we look at some sort of incentive program for our teachers to be here. If it's legitimate, you know, it is what it is.
Absolutely.
I was looking at that too, a part of the report. I mean, 60% of the time is 2 or more days, but the vast majority of the absence reasons are sick. So they're using sick time, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't align. So a part of the negotiations, there's something that's going on there. They're just using sick time, taking vacation, doing whatever they gotta do.
Yeah.
At least we get 2 days' notice. Got a
Right.
cold. Got a cold coming on.
Yeah.
Any questions on anything before I close this up? I can certainly click on attachments too.
Is that it? Any questions? Okay, high school principals report. Anything? Middle school principals report, anything? Elementary? Anything? Carol's report? AD's report, I think we covered that pretty much earlier. Community ed, I just want to thank Stephen for Celebrate Jordan. I think he did a really good job. It was a fun event, so, and he's got some fun new things planned for spring the way it looks, so. Okay, the communications marketing, anything on that? Andrea's nutrition report, special services report, technology director's report. Okay, we're gonna make it home for the tip-off at 8:20. All right.
That's the game plan. That's the game plan.
Facility director's report. And then we have Tommy's report.